letting go of the world. So, often enough with my rants with people, um, we are dealing with, regardless of what side of a spectrum you're on, in liberal or conservative nature, which is the dichotomy anywhere in the world. It's like there's different ways in which it looks and sounds, but like American liberalism, American conservatism, people fall one way or the other towards tradition or progress. And what is fascinating is that we live in a time of neither, because we're living in a time that is trying to force both. Amongst the conservatives, you have an incorrect assessment of the past. And also coming from a place in the past of familiar themes that echo the darker side of history. And then as far as the future is concerned, if you look at all the projections, it's meant to thrust us forward into a different kind of horrible place. And both of these are trying to take these good things that they observe from both to go one way or the other. And liberals, they don't want anything of the past, and conservatives don't want anything of the future. And the rationalist in the middle gets fucked over by the worst of it all. And this is fairly unprecedented now. We may at best be living in kind of a repeat of the 1970s, right? If you look at the 1970s juxtaposed to the 1960s, one can ask themselves many pertinent questions, like where did the urban decay all of a sudden come from? If you lived in New York in the 1960s, with the exception of perhaps some ghettos, everything was clean, poor and clean, except for ultra wealthy parts, right? But then you get to the 1970s and everything feels like you're in a grindhouse horror picture. You know, you go to the deep south and there's some goddamn House of a Thousand Corpses situation going on somewhere, and you go into the deep inner city and it's the fucking Warriors, quite literally. And so the counterculture of its day, like woke is the counterculture of our day, it has forged this world that will never truly recover, just like we never truly recovered from the devastation of the 1960s. The only thing that can happen is that we build elsewhere and cultivate a decent culture elsewhere, whether it be a different part of the city or a different fucking place altogether, right? The circumstances of our times have led those that affirm for striving for a higher quality of life have gone into the homesteading, and it gets mocked. It gets mocked because of people's ignorance, and sometimes that ignorance is due, right? If you completely cut everything out, you're not doing well by your family, right? If you're a family man, right? Because it's it's a dichotomy of you know, the way a man on his own wants to live and the way a woman on her own wants to live. And a woman likes technology a lot. I think a woman likes technology more than a man, as far as the technology being their fucking world. Men like technology as far as how it enhances what they can do. A woman likes technology for how it enhances her experience of her surroundings. And thus this corresponds with certain things, right? Because when we think of the future, we think of all this stuff that's been built that makes life better, right? You don't have to cook your own food anymore. You don't have to lock up your own house anymore. You don't have to wash your own clothes anymore. So on and so forth. There's a technology that does it for you. There's a machine that does it for you. So on and so forth. And the more you have that, the more that you can appeal to higher personal needs. Right? It's just like basic personal needs. You know, your root chakra oriented stuff gets covered. And of course, we've got some incredibly impatient fucking people that are ready to fucking cause accidents. Asian bitch driving, tailgating, trying to pass people in the right fucking lane. Fuck you, you cunt. Seriously, do you see the rain, bitch? See, there she's gonna try to pass on the right again. There's a fucking boxcar up there. Yeah, I know you're gonna you're gonna veer off and see, you know, this, you know, forgive me if I don't fucking trust women's judgment a whole fucking lot. Of course, if that was a guy, they'd be, you know, it'd be worse because they'd be in their little fucking rice burner or something like that, revving their engine, really ducking and dashing. Just like, you driving like that in the fucking weather? Like her, she's making some very poor fucking choices, but she's not driving like she's in a race, but she is fucking like just trying to get past everybody the wrong way, which is also what a lot of asshole guys do. But it becomes one of those things where you see a woman doing it, and it's just, it hits different when a woman does it, and other women will fucking tell you that. But anyway, so you've got this, so you got like men look at life, and a man does want to fucking improve things the way a woman wants to see an emergent future that is a better life, a comfortable life for her, and all that stuff. It's nesting, all right? It's fucking nesting. Chick wants to lay her eggs. She ain't gonna lay her eggs unless the nest is perfect, right? It's just how we are in nature, right? It's part of it's part of the animal side of our psyche. And then we have the transcendent part of our psyche, which we call man. Oh my God, people just act like they can drive like it's fair weather around fucking semi trucks. It's just like, I wouldn't drive like that around a semi truck if it was fucking fair. What the fuck's wrong with these people? Seriously. So, so a guy is going to be looking at examples of things. He's going to, he's going to want to look at what was and be like, is this the best of what was? Is it what I like the most about what was? Can I recreate what was? Can I improve upon what was? And this is the man's psyche, which has a lot more to do with the past. You look at people involved in the discussion of history, it's men. Mostly men involved in either doing, either discussing it or acting upon it. Right? Always exceptions to the rules, obviously. I find it interesting how many women there are in archaeology, which, brings you to classic digging up the past jokes. But anyway, but like, ladies that care about the past, they're often about the recent past. Right? Something within enough detailed records, something that's got that personal life situation, right? My favorite example is the Rotting Jewels channel, Dana Nuda, where, for her, looking into the past is, most of it goes back to like the 60s, right? Like that's, and like that's her pocket, and she's wise to many things that came before it, but she's kind of sticking to something very specific because it's involving very recent, relevant cultural influences happening in the now, as she's looking at these things in our current zeitgeist that are affecting our future, right? You know, as opposed to me, who, like, I'm trying to peer so far back into the past, I practically need to fucking meditate about it because half of it is off the fucking record. You know, I'm trying to figure out what they said in an ancient Egyptian papyri, right? And that to me is a different thing, right? You know, it's yeah, I consider it a source of power, right? You know, you're looking at this wellspring of power towards understanding, towards application in magic, because I'm some sort of a ceremonial magician, right? Some sort of a magus, and you know, part of doing magic that way is really knowing this shit about this. You know, like, you have to look into some fucking ancient shit, right? You know, it's having a deeper interest. Like, it makes sense to a man more immediately about getting to the quote root of a thing, going far enough back, like, where, like, you're not even 100% sure what you're looking for, but you're just going all the way back there, right? You know, otherwise, like, a lady, she's gonna look back, and she's gonna look back as far as what she's looking for. She already knows what she's looking for, because she already knows what she wants. But you've got like, so basically, like, the war, you know, the war of gender, the war of sexes is also, it's also deeply rooted in the war for the future and the war for the past, right? Where men have this strong position about what is the past that informs the future, and women have a strong position of what's really a better future because of what she knows should not be from the past, right? And people that are wise on both ends of that spectrum can come together and accomplish anything. And we seem to have used to have that, right? You know, Ayn Rand tried to exemplify these as ideas with what she was doing with the Fountainhead and with Atlas Shrugged, and the juxtaposition of her lead female characters to her lead male characters. And one can tell that Ayn Rand is pretty good as a woman about men, right? Because I mean, like, I think that she had a strong prior incarnation as a man. Perhaps she usually incarnated as a man, and this was one of her few lifetimes that she incarnated as a woman, right? Because, you know, with the way she cut her hair, the hard life that she came out of getting into America, so on and so forth, right? She's got that harsh, I grew up in the Eastern Bloc disposition, which is kind of puts a lot of masculine traits on you, right? And she loved and admired men, was an extremely anti-feminist. But her way of elevating woman, in some respects, if you pay attention to it, is extraordinarily powerful, right? I mean, there's a lot of Ayn Randian inspired women that are out there, right? Now, as much as I love a lot of Ayn Rand. I don't like people that don't have too much about their inspired life that is outside of Ayn Rand. You know, I think it needs to be in a deeper mix. I mean, especially if Ayn Rand is going to persuade you to be atheist materialist, right? I'm sure that Madame Rand would make would have a sharp criticism, perhaps even a mockery. Of said values. Where I'm believing in all these spiritual, metaphysical things as such. Which, by the way, in today's day and age, for various reasons, is always been more appealing to women. Women don't easily mock it, even if they're not much of a believer in it. Like a man who's not a believer in things like magic is much more inclined to mock it when a man's doing it. I mean, when a woman's doing it too, and the woman's style doesn't do anything for him, right? Because, like, you know, like a guy who doesn't believe in magic, if he sees a chick doing magic, if she looks fucking amazing and she doesn't sound fucking batshit crazy or whatever, they'll be like, oh, she's interested, right? You know, and you know, like, you know, in their base animalistic instinct, they may just simply want to fuck her, right? And just looks at the magic as almost like role play fetish kind of stuff that he can, whatever. And then you get that meme of me letting my witchy girlfriend do whatever the fuck she wants, and you're strapped down to a pentagram and all that funny, mean shit. But we're living in this time where the future and the past, the male and the female, have conflicted and canceled each other out, and it's left us in a place where it's hard for things to get better because each side is making things worse, right? And I think things actually are getting better, but they're still... Well, I think things are going to get better, but they're still getting worse for now. This next generation, Gen A needs its time to reach maturity, right? And I think, Gen A is going to be a formidable force because, like, Gen Z, who is the people now who are doing what they're doing, are the product of the last of the childbearing millennials, right? The last of the millennials that, they still had children. Or maybe one could say, that these are of the youngest Gen Xers, or I'm sorry, the youngest Gen Xers per se would have made Gen Z probably more so, right? Either way, Gen Z, highly nihilistic, trying to carry the communist message that was sold to them by the millennial, you know, people around them, right? Because, you know, you have all these millennials that are, you know, in their early adulthood. Like there's young adult, which kind of means teenager, right? But, you know, then we created teenager, so now young adult is like people that are in their early 20s, right? So the young adults, the young adult millennials of the time, like in, you know, going forward from like the early mid 2000s, they were big brother, big sister to the Gen Z children emerging. And indoctrinating them with their ideas. So they're running with these ideas, which they don't have a basis in reality. They only have a basis in humanity, right? And when you don't understand things, and this basically ties into what is kind of hardlined itself into almost the only issue that matters anymore. Now that people see what, you know, because, like, I'll put it to you this way. There's a number of things that people were afraid that the conservatives of today are going to do because of the neocons of the past, right? And we're no longer with the neocon situation anymore. It still lurks. You know, we have neocon people like, you know, like Marco fucking Rubio's. At least he was a neocon. You know, you could say people were neocon, they maybe still are. Long story short is, the neocon stuff, which comes from that hyper fundamentalist Christian shit, but then also is meant to betray you in, you know, in the backdrop as you're making your deals with the with the left, right? Because you know, all of it is about masking the Fabian socialists, which are the people that screw up your idealistic socialism with their occulted socialism of the Fabian socialists, which is basically there for the high society people, the Ivy League educated people to be turned into. As a product of what it takes to be a statist. And so, you know, they were very worried that we were going to go back to completely abusive, exploitative, dehumanizing, stripping of rights and things like that for, you know, alternative lifestyle, like LGBTQ plus, you know, as it were, and casual drug use, like me and my cannabis, right? And you see that there is a sincere interest in those things not being the case, right? Like there's a lot of things they don't want to go back to, right? A lot of lessons learned, so people that may hate conservatives today, they also can't say that they've heard any of them say that they're coming after them, right? As far as what I just mentioned and a few other things. Now, what we do have issues that are real, but it's a question of, are your fears of how they're being done, right? Because there's an entire understanding of things like illegal aliens. And there's an entire understanding of things such as you have an arrest warrant. If you committed any particular serious prosecutable offense, assault, rape, larceny, theft, laundering of money, other forms of high-end fraud. All these other kinds of laws in the books, especially ones, because ones like that have a victim. I think it's corpus delicti in the Latin parlance of our justice system, the body of the crime. So if there's no body, right? If there's no victim of the crime, then then it's some bullshit between you and the state as a legal entity, right? And aside from the narrative, the problem with the narrative is that the narrative isn't contextualizing the individual in question. And so it's the matter that in all of these cases, you've got all illegal aliens that have been picked up, and some of them are violent criminals, or just guys with really bad raps, guys that at the very least have to be arrested. That's the thing. These are just the crimes left unspoken. Like if we weren't doing all this stuff, you could have news reporters on these communities where these illegal aliens have set up their little economies and their little living hovels or whatever, and you'll find out that it's dangerous shit going on in there. It is like the countries they came from in there. But because we're in abject denial, we've ignored this, and we just see the behavior of the Gestapo, right? And we do have these large detention centers. We're building detention centers. And hopefully that is not going to turn into some horror show, right? You had a concentration camp situation throughout the German Reich, and people were starving, perhaps as merely the product of supply chain breakdown by the end of the war, and naturally your soldiers are going to get fed first, and they're going to get fed real fucking well, right? So these detention centers are supposed to be here because we're doing an unprecedented amount of actually going after look, it's not 4 years of Joe Biden's immigration policy. That's just Trump talking about something that people politically understand by recent memory. We're talking about shit that Trump had no control over in his 45th presidency. And stuff that literally the last, like every fucking president since the end of World War II has fucking done, which is turn a blind eye to the border out of our needs to replenish the workforce, because we were shifting everything towards education, right? So young people were dropping the trades for the education, to be the thinkers in the world, to be like, they're gonna go work in construction, sure, but they're gonna be like the foreman, and then they're gonna have these laborers coming in, and they're gonna be the ones on the ground getting dirty, being the most skilled with the hammer and the saw, right? All these circumstances. And so the left, the liberals, they're not looking at the precedent of history very well. They're not. They are not looking into how things are being handled. They wouldn't believe how they're being told things are being handled. And not that one should be just simply believing what people are saying is the way things are being handled. That's a horrible idea. But we can spend a whole lot of time getting to know the situation for real. And see it in word, you can see it in deed, you can see it in records, that the way things have been described is the way things are with what they are doing. Now, unless you are a complete anti-nationalist, and I don't mean anti-government, I just mean anti-nation. If you're an anti-nationalist, then all of this is wrong. Because I think you can be anti-government and pro what is going on. We happen to have a government that's doing it as per the way we've organized our nation. That ought to be fairly clear of a comprehension of the facts, right? So, the government, on behalf of the needs of the nation, aka the people, to preserve the integrity of how we define ourselves as people, we act accordingly to maintain the purpose for why all that is. And all of that can be done in a perfectly fine manner. Right? And there's just a big difference between I'm grabbing a criminal that maybe committed the crime some time ago, that because regardless of what your justice system administrative policies are, the actual grievance of the crime is not something that can be dismissed just on the whim of the other bodies of government, right? You've got something that the court is looking at. By the way the law is established, the court cannot look away. And the only thing that can really be done is that you can refuse to do anything about it. You can tell people to stop and not work, which is like what they were doing with ICE and all that stuff, is telling them not to work and so on and so forth, right? And all that anti-ICE sentiment had been there for a very, very, very long time. This Gestapo-looking shit, even if it wasn't happening, there'd still be people with a massive problem with it. right? During Obama years and Biden years, people in ICE, the press would not have a political point about the report. They would just give you the report, and they would just let you know, oh yeah, ICE made arrests and whatever, right? And here's the charges, and you can go look it up or whatever. And then people made up their mind as to whether that was something they wanted to activate upon and protest. Nowadays, they're telling you horrible, inhumane things are being done by the government to innocent people that want to have a better life, right? Like, because this is effectively it at this point, right? There's no other thing that anybody's really fucking fighting about, right? The world is having all sorts of arguments about things going on. They have their own issues. But here in America, we've straightened out most of that stuff. For now, at the very least. Because letting go of the world has involved never expecting everything that was in this world that entertained you to come back. The entertainments of this world are gone. Various privileges of this world are gone, right? The spirit of it all is different. It's hard to explain. But in effect, it's like, like my favorite examples are the movies, right? Everybody is just like, well, maybe finally Disney will make this film and do it right. You and I know that's a fucking lie. Hey, what's up, Kelly? I have to get going because I have to do some unfamiliar driving to get past some construction detours and things like that. So I'm about ready to call it here. But the new generation, who also is in denial about the power structure in control of making your films, which is in part about the money with the shareholders. But remember, those shares have been very, very expensive. So elites are the kinds of people that have investment in Disney, right? These guys have a whole slew of things that puts all of that together. And so the investors, they look at a thing and its stocks are up, they're gonna buy it or they're gonna hold it or whatever, right? It's just like I used to Uber people, and it was like late in 2020, I think, something, like the vaccine was on the horizon or something like that, and I would hear somebody with into investing in my car, talking about how excited they are, their stock is up because they heard that they're just about ready to roll out their vaccine, right? And so I was upset about that, because I knew that they were going to force it. And, they did. They definitely forced it. You can resist it. I was able to resist it. There's very few things in this world that you can fight off that way. This is why they try to get these things on you when you have no agency. You know, you're a newborn baby. Let's give that baby a goddamn fucking circumcision. You know, so, you know, thanks. I have no fucking say with my own fucking penis. Fuck you. People are worried about immigration. And they don't care about who forces bodily harm upon them. All right. I gotta go. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this point came across, because sometimes I feel like I don't always quite land it, but it's usually a good listen. All right, catch you later.